Hey guys, how's it going? Jesse here from Still It, and lately I've been getting a whole lot of questions about my equipment and some of the equipment that I would recommend for other new distillers. I've been holding off on doing anything like this for a little while. I wanted to be able to use this stuff at least a little bit to be able to give you a real idea of what I think of it. But I've been getting so many requests lately that I think it's time to just do it. So Dave specifically asked about the boiler. This is my boiler. It's based on a 50-litre beer keg, and I did not make this. It was very kindly donated by the awesome people at English Hill Distillery. And while I didn't make this boiler, I do believe that it is a very good candidate for a great boiler for anyone regardless, but especially for a beginner that is looking for around about the 50-litre mark, which I think is a really good place to start as well. So I thought today I would really quickly run through the features of this boiler. I'm not going to tell you how to build one exactly. I will give you a few parts and things like that. And the reason is I didn't build it. I haven't made one like this, so I'm not exactly sure I can give good advice there. But at least it'll give you somewhere to start and you'll know perhaps what you want, and then you can look at how you can go about producing it. If you are in New Zealand, I know of a few boilers very similar to this that are for sale now. So if you're interested and you think maybe you just want to buy one and not go through the hassle of getting all the bits and building one, flick me a message on the back end of this channel or get hold of me on Facebook or something like that, and I can let you know what I know. So a couple of the most obvious things about this boiler are A, that it's had the front of the handle cut off, which is awesome for access to this area, to the front of the keg, to the front of the boiler, to be able to get into it, but it still leaves you the two handles, which are really helpful. It's also pretty obvious that it's had a second ferrule added at the front. This is a 4-inch stainless steel ferrule designed to be used with a tri-clamp. It's basically here to allow access into the boiler. It makes it easier to clean, to get inside, to fill the boiler when you're charging it. And if you wanted to, I think one day I want to put a glass cap on here so I can see what's going on inside during a run. This is the standard ferrule that comes with the keg. It's a 2-inch fitting. These just happen to fit a 2-inch stainless tri-clamp ferrule perfectly. The only problem is you'll need a gasket that is one-sided with a groove and one-sided flat, or you can cut your own down as well. This is obviously super helpful for being able to attach and detach your column nice and easily. If you're using a 2-inch column, which I am, you're not going to need a reducer or anything like that. I have been told that if you want to put a 3 or 4-inch column on top of here, having a 2-inch bottleneck is no big deal, and it's all about the column width, not the width right here. So that shouldn't be a problem. But if you wanted to, you could totally switch this out as well, or instead of a big one here. Next, there is a drain of 25mm stainless right at the middle and the bottom of the keg. Having it in the middle is helpful because when you drain it, it drains dry, like virtually bone dry. This particular one has a gate valve on it, and that works just fine for me. That has the obvious advantage of being able to empty this thing out when it's hot and heavy, full of liquid. You know, you may still have 30 litres of liquid in there at 70 degrees or something, and the last thing you want to be doing is lifting that around and busting your back. By all means, it's not a necessity, but it is definitely a nice thing to have. The only problem with putting a drain right splat bang in the middle of the keg is you're going to find it hard to use with gas. A lot of people will heat boilers just like this one with gas, which is not a problem. It works. Personally, I like to advocate for electric for a couple of reasons. I think it's safer, and personally I just think it's less hassle. I prefer to work with electric, but that's just me. If you do want to use gas, you're going to want to move where you put that drain in though. Obviously this is an electric boiler, and basically 2 female threaded ports have been TIG welded into the side. You're going to want to put these elements pretty close to the bottom of the boiler. The reason I say that is you want to be able to cover those elements with as little water as possible. You probably don't want them a whole lot lower than these ones are though. I think these ones are about right. And for me, it takes me pretty much exactly 10 litres to just cover the top of the elements. I probably wouldn't want to run any lower than about 15 litres though, just to be safe and not burn those elements out. So personally, I have two 2-kilowatt elements in this boiler, and for me right now that is working just fine. When I'm actually up and operational for anything other than a stripping run, I doubt I will ever use more than 2 kilowatts. maybe up to about 3 kilowatts in some situations, I guess. So you don't need a whole lot of power. 2 kilowatts is enough to run on. The extra power is nice for getting up to temperature nice and fast though, I do have to say. And eventually when I've got the infrastructure to take it, I'm going to switch from 2 kilowatt elements over to 3 kilowatt elements for 6 kilowatts in total. The last feature that this kettle has is a small port at the front, and this is intended for something like a thermocouple or a thermometer. I know a lot of people say they're useless, you don't need them, and there's no reason to put it in. In some ways, I agree. It's not useful information necessarily when you're up and running, and it's definitely not information you want to be basing your cuts on or how you run your still or anything like that. It is, however, I think, nice to know what's going on down there when you're warming up. It's going to give you a good idea of when you want to look closely at your still when it's warming up. And it could also be a good indicator of some serious problems and things like that. I don't have anything hooked up to it yet, but I'm really thankful it's there because one day I will definitely be utilizing it. There are, of course, a bunch of other little modifications you can do in a boiler like this. I'm not going to get into those now though, because I think this is kind of the standard deluxe model for a beginner distiller. I really couldn't ask for anything better, so thanks a bunch, Andrew. I love it, man. I forgot to mention that there are 3 legs on this kettle. Seeing as the drain port comes right out of the bottom, it's a good idea to be able to lift the keg up. So if you're already tigging things together and getting this set up, I would totally recommend a couple little legs to get this up off the ground a little bit. Or I guess alternatively you could build a stand to have it sit on. Up to you. This particular boiler has been put together by TIG welding, which I think is probably the best solution. If that's not something that you have easy access to, you could also think about brazing it or soldering it. I have not got a lot of experience brazing or soldering stainless to stainless though, so we'll get back to that at a later date. Anyway team, I hope that helps you decide what perhaps you would like for your personal boiler. In any case guys, I hope this helped you out a little bit if you're thinking about getting into this sort of thing. If you have any other suggestions for other newbies, shout out in the comments. If you have any questions, shout out in the comments, and I'll catch you guys later. See ya!